joining us here in the Rich Eisen Show studios here in New York City, the NBA columnist from the Bleacher Report in his 18th season covering the NBA, formerly from the LA Daily News and the New York Times. Howard Beck, good to see you, sir. How are you?
Good to see you. Doing well.
Thanks
doing
for-
well.
thanks for
19th season as it happens. Now, my bio's behind.
Right?
I got to get
Is
that
that right?
updated. Yeah, it flies by.
Damn Wikipedia. Damn that.
Also, someone's backs will probably be up against the wall in that Game 5. That's going to be decisive and pivotal.
Well, as you know, this Game 5, pivotal games can lead to decisive games.
Absolutely.
Right? You know what I'm saying? And decisive games are always pivotal, I guess, in a way. But you know the way it works.
I think decisive game has to be like the decisive game. That's the game that somebody's out.
That's right.
It's been decided.
So it's either 3-1 or 2-2, and that's
Right.
why Game 5 is either decisive or pivotal. We have the pivotal Game 5 right now. And I don't know what a fourth game is for a sweep, as we saw with Cleveland last night. And I'd like to start with that with you. The way that they have played, the way that LeBron didn't pass it, shot it, and then played defense, the way that they are winning right now gives Cleveland fans a certain level of excitement. Do you feel that this is a warranted feeling or that the Western Conference team will eventually succeed?
Yeah, it's funny, Rich, because everything the Cavaliers have done so far, this is what you wanted to see. If you're a Cavaliers fan or if you're anybody with an interest in seeing this team fulfill the elite status that you thought they would have when the Big Three first came together, you're seeing it. And we only saw it, we saw it in stretches their first season together, but they had a good but not great first season. They had a good but not great second season. And of course, we know what happened in the playoffs last year with Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving getting hurt. So there's always still been kind of these questions hovering over, like, do these three really fit together perfectly or not? How good is the supporting cast? How consistently can this team play at an elite level? Are they truly on the standing of the Warriors or the Spurs or the Thunder? And I feel like right now, personally, I'm like 90% of the way there. And that other 10% is the fact that, look, it's been pretty easy so far. This Hawks team is not even, that they just swept, is not even as good as the Hawks team that they knocked out a year ago. The Detroit Pistons team that they met in the first round, obviously an 8th seed, a team that hadn't been in the playoffs in several years. So the Cavaliers are hitting on all cylinders. They look like they're perfectly in sync with each other. Their Big Three are, I think, fitting together right now in a way that we hadn't seen consistently, at least, before. And they're shooting threes just at an unreal rate and making them at an unreal rate. They look every bit the part of a team that should be on par with the powers of the West, but they haven't been tested by any of those teams or anybody like them because the East doesn't have any, and they still won't see one in the conference finals because they're either going to get a battered Toronto team or a battered Miami team. And so we'll all still be wondering, I think, until we get to the finals.
Howard Beck of Bleacher Report joining me here on the Rich Eisen Show. And the last time we spoke, it was fresh off of your piece that you wrote about LeBron and Carmelo. Deep within was that bite about how, I could see me and Carmelo and Chris Paul and let's get the whole Banana Boat gang together in a way from last summer where they're all partying it up in the Caribbean. And we were all up in arms about it, right? Now, right? To me, it's complete. It seems that has dissipated, right? That whole furor and uproar that we were talking about.
I mean, it looks incredibly irrelevant in this particular moment with the Cavs undefeated in the playoffs and cruising toward the finals and everybody in sync and happy. It was probably kind of a silly thing to obsess about even at the time. But this is the world we live in, right?
Well, it's true. And the fact that right now we're all just from the NFL world talking about how Sam Bradford showed up for work today in Philadelphia after he demanded a trade and said that he wouldn't be coming back until he got his way, and how we're looking at this right now. Oh, he's done in Philadelphia, or oh, the fans will be finished with him. And then when the rubber meets the road in the playing season, if he performs well, that should dissipate too. I'm just trying to see how this all plays out in our world.
I think a lot of this is just because part of it is the world we live in right now in terms of social media and just the intense amount of media coverage. All of us, fans and media, are obsessing about and over-analyzing everything to death because we're going literally second to second on Twitter.
Sure.
Part of it is that there's always a different dynamic behind closed doors than we really know. No matter how good a reporting job any of us do in the business, there's always an element that you just don't quite grasp at the moment. And at that time with Cleveland, when LeBron, made those remarks to me about getting his whole gang together, it looked like a slight at his teammates because there had been a bunch of other things going on with the Cavs at that time.
Following the Cavs.
Yeah.
But unfollowing, right? Do I use the wrong phrase? I said defollowing again. Apparently that
Technically, it means the same.
unfollowing
is what Twitter calls it.
Okay, yeah. I got taken to task. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
But all of those things only meant something if they start losing, if they fall short. And then you look back at those things and you say, aha, those were all indications of a team that was fracturing. If you win, as with everything gets covered up. So maybe those issues exist, maybe they don't. It doesn't really matter right now. And it may not have mattered at all anyway. And I thought the key thing actually to me was, so a week after that story came out, the Cavaliers happened to be in Brooklyn where I live. So I wanted to go down to the arena. I hadn't seen LeBron since the story came out.
Yes.
So I wanted to just go back, make the in-person appearance. First time I'd seen him since the story, just to say, hey, thanks again for all the time. I was really happy with the story. I got amazing response to it. And I wanted to, again, thank you for being so open. And I joked with him. I just said, hey, by the way, sorry I, created yet another, drama for you to deal with or whatever, or stirred it up. And he just laughed. He's like, man, that's no big deal. And they had just gotten their butts kicked, I believe, that night by the Nets too, which
I do remember that.
So his frame of mind, different than the rest of ours. He knows, he knows exactly where things stand between he and his teammates, what they were capable of. I don't think that he had as much concern as the rest of us about how that would play. He clearly didn't.
Mm-hmm. Howard Beck of the Bleacher Report is right here on the Rich Eisen Show. I want to talk about the other series with you. It's a best of three right now between the Spurs and the Thunder. And then it looks like Curry's going to be the MVP once again here in the NBA. I'd love to get your thoughts on all those subjects here.
Absolutely.
No, you were about to say something. I just wanted to see.
Yeah.
Are you good?
No, I'm good.
We're back in 60 Ticks the Clock. Also, we'll drag Howard into the stupidity that we've had all day about
why not
about flight etiquette and whether you take your shoes off on a plane. The way he laughed, I think he understands where I stand on the subject. And then there's still somebody who's a Rich Eisen Show favorite that has chimed in on Twitter.
Has chimed in.
Is it a he or a she?
It's a she.
Ah, very good. Back in a minute here on the Rich Eisen Show. Howard Beck, NBA columnist for Bleacher Report and co-host of NBA Sunday Tip on Sirius XM Bleacher Report Radio. And I'm assuming that's every Sunday, since it's a Sunday. That would be an odd name of a show if it was like on a Monday, right?
Absolutely. Okay. Yes, every Sunday for the rest of the season.
Terrific. Howard Beck, at Howard Beck on Twitter, joining me here on the Rich Eisen Show. So what happens now with the Spurs and Thunder best of three? How do you think this plays out here?
I mean, it's best of three. It's almost a coin flip at this point. Obviously, the Spurs have the home court in this, but they've each won at the other place. The Thunder, I mean, there was you never want to wipe off anything as lucky when it's an elite team like the Thunder. But that game 2 win, I mean, you're literally down to the final seconds. The uncalled offensive foul on Dion Waiters, leaning into elbow Ginobili on that inbounds. And then he threw the ball away anyway on that inbounds play. But these two teams, this is what you expected. Anybody before this series started, you would have expected a 7-game series. And then that blowout by the Spurs in game 1, I think, skewed everyone's perceptions that, the Thunder is ready to come apart. The Spurs are just at another level. False impression, clearly. These teams are much more closely matched than you would think. Kawhi Leonard, I think, is overdue for another explosive game.
Mm-hmm.
The Spurs are the best prepared team in the NBA. And I fully expect we're going to see that we're going to get their best in Game 5.
What we're hearing so much about, Howard, is how this could be the swan song for Kevin Durant with Oklahoma City. And we just came off of an NFL season where it was Peyton Manning nonstop. Yeah. And David Ortiz is now on his farewell tour for the Boston Red Sox. And it just seems to me that nobody's talking about Tim Duncan at all right now. And he just got held scoreless in a playoff game for the first time in his career. Is this the end for Duncan? Are we seeing the last of Duncan in San Antonio, do you think?
I was just talking about this with Zach Lowe on his podcast, which we were just recording, that this feels like it for the first time. Because every year for 5 years running, it's when is it the end? For the Spurs in general, for their run, for Duncan. And, he's been on a kind of a year-to-year basis. And he had actually a very solid regular season. Limited minutes, limited role. Can't remember how many games he played, but he played very solidly, especially defensively. He was still a key piece of that Spurs defense. And so coming into the playoffs, you would have thought, however it ends for them, all right, yeah, he's 40, but I could still see one more year of Tim Duncan. Big men can kind of stretch it out for a while, and you keep minimizing the role. But yeah, for the first time, it feels like, wow, maybe this really is it. And they are built to withstand that now. They have LaMarcus Aldridge. They have Kawhi Leonard becoming a top 5 player in the NBA. Is a top 5 player right now in the NBA. So they're ready. They're ready to complete that transition. But yeah, it feels like this kind of snuck up on us in a way after a year spent obsessing over Kobe Bryant's farewell tour. But look, this was befitting their personalities. Having all that pomp and circumstance, even though Kobe didn't necessarily invite it, it's Kobe. It had to happen.
Yes.
With Duncan, if Duncan had announced it was the farewell tour back in November, there still wouldn't have been any. It would have been. It's Duncan. Like the response to Duncan has to match Duncan, and that he is just kind of quietly fading away. Like we'll turn around and all of a sudden. Wait, where did he go? That kind of makes sense.
So Steph Curry being named the MVP for a second consecutive year, everybody's talking about that being his fact. That's a no-brainer, right? No question about it.
I mean, it was a no-brainer for the last couple of months. I mean, I'm one who, like, when I get my ballots from the NBA every year, you get them first week or so of April, and they're due the day after the last game of the regular season. And I'm always the guy who's like the last one hitting send, or in the old days, putting them in an envelope and handing it to them.
Nice.
At like 2:59 or whatever on that Thursday. But that was one where, for weeks, months, we knew Steph Curry's at the top. The debate was who's number 2, 3, 4, 5. That was the tough part. If Curry's not unanimous, I don't want to say it'll be a surprise, because LeBron should have been unanimous a few years back, and he fell one vote short, and Shaq should have been unanimous back in 2000, but he fell one vote short. If ever there should be a unanimous MVP, it's Curry this time. That's been a given for a while that he would get. It was just a matter of how many votes.
And tonight, he's not going to play tonight, right? Would you expect?
Doesn't look like. I mean, when the Warriors don't play a lot of games with this stuff, so when they say doubtful, I think they mean it.
Okay.
So I don't think we should expect to see him.
And what in the world is going on in this town with the coaching search? It seems to me, based on whatever I'm hearing from reports and just keeping my ear down to the ground, that it seems like Phil Jackson is trying to wait out everybody that's available to go somewhere else so he can hire Kurt Rambis and tell his boss, this is the best we can do, because I feel like he's the best here, but this is the best we can do, and that the boss doesn't want Kurt Rambis. Is that a fair assessment with what is happening here? Because this makes no sense that this job is still open.
I agree on the ultimate conclusion you just drew, Rich, but not about necessarily the mechanics there.
Okay.
I do think this is heading, I don't want to say inevitably, but most likely toward eventually Kurt Rambis being named the head coach. I don't think that's an absolute. I think they are quietly poking around, looking at other options. But because Kurt Rambis is essentially the only one out there who's got triangle experience and who has a relationship with Phil. Remember, Phil Jackson, kind of a standoffish figure. I don't want to say he's been, I think, misportrayed almost as, as supremely aloof or above it all arrogant. It's not that. Phil Jackson's just not a real social guy. So
unless you're John Lithgow, then it's like Thelma and Louise.
He's got his handful of people that he's tight with,
right.
But he's not a very social guy. So he's not someone who's real networked. Now, that is a handicap, by the way, for you. It's fine if you're a head coach. As a team president or GM, that is an issue. And so that is an issue for Phil Jackson, that he just doesn't know a lot of people. So when you're looking for that up-and-coming guy, the Nets go out and hire Kenny Atkinson from Atlanta. Kenny was a guy who, in coaching circles and NBA circles in general, you knew this is a guy who's got a great future ahead of him. He's worked his tail off, widely respected. He's going to be one of those next potentially great head coaches, certainly a guy you should keep an eye on. So the Nets went and gave him his first head coaching job. Phil Jackson was never in a position to do that because he's not networked that way. So there's that. There's the fact that he is very much married to his system, the triangle offense, and wants somebody who either is steeped in it already or has a philosophical, some shared philosophy that would make them, open to that. Somebody else who runs system basketball. So there just weren't that many options that fit what Phil Jackson wants. So there are obviously many good coaches out there that were available. I don't think he's running down the clock just to try to like pull the wool over the eyes of the owner. I mean, the owner knows who all the names are and all the reports about, Frank Vogel, Dave Yeager, all the rest that have been available. I just think that Phil Jackson's doing what Phil Jackson does, which is keeping everybody on the edge, guessing. But I do think, in all likelihood, it's Kurt Rambis.
19 seasons, you said, covering the NBA. So how many frequent flyer miles do you have, Howard Beck? Put me a number. Give me a number.
I've spent most of them.
You have spent most. So millions, right? You've had accrued throughout your career. Millions.
I would guess $1.5 million to $2 million.
Okay. Now you're flying and somebody takes their shoes off next to you on a plane. What do you think? Are you a shoe taker offer on a plane?
I will admit, with cameras rolling, I have. However, I wouldn't do that if I hadn't showered, had fresh socks and shoes that were not like if you're in like your 10-month-old gym shoes that you've been running in every day.
Yes.
That would be really
rude,
to say the least.
But
and
I don't
foolish.
know you. You look like an upstanding citizen. You look like somebody who could do that.
And with good hygiene.
Yes, of course. But right now. Don't give me that look, Brockman. We don't know you. We don't know you on a plane.
The way you say that to Howard, like I'm not hygienic.
No, you are a hygienic man, but
Okay.
I don't know you on a plane. How do I know if you're taking your shoes off that you're friendly?
Why are you worrying about everyone else on the plane?
Because I don't need a stench. I don't need a problem.
Shouldn't you be in the zone when you're on the plane, like just focused on yourself?
Here's the thing.
Yes,
you know when the person has breached etiquette if when they take off their shoes,
Yes.
you actually are like smacked in the head by the stench.
Right.
Like, so if they take their shoes off and there's nothing, then it's no harm, no foul.
Then you can give them a look, and they'll kind of get the hint.
But when somebody, okay, sure. Do you know how many times you give the look? You give the look to people.
Has anyone ever given you the look?
No, because I go right to sleep.
At richeisenshow.com, the question is, but is it what is the poll question as it currently stands, the results of the poll?
74%. It's not okay to take your shoes off.
Now, who's the person who chimed in on Twitter?
Our good friend of the program way back in the day, Chrissy Teigen.
Oh, fantastic.
You may know her as a supermodel, new mom, wife to John Legend. She said...
Host of the Lip Sync Battle.
Host of the Lip Sync Battle, Season 2.
Yeah.
She chimed in, if you must do so, sock is a must, but keep on for takeoff and landing should you need to bolt.
Okay.
Which is what I do.
Okay, so she's
Team
kind of
Brockman.
played it right down the middle.
She's Team Brockman.
Definitely not Team Brockman.
Team Brockman. Thank you.
It's okay. All right, but that's my problem is we just don't know, Howard. You know?
I like that Chrissy Teigen has the airline safety video in mind, where hey, at a moment's notice you may have to vacate the plane. Have your shoes on.
Have your shoes.
In case.
Before you came on, we had a 37-year veteran of flying, a pilot, Jet from Little Rock, Arkansas, saying that not only should you keep it on for safety reasons, but other than that, you're a monster. You're a monster in the air other than that. Howard, thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate that. Check out Howard's writing on Bleacher Report, and then, of course, NBA Sunday Tip. Who's your co-host? Get it out there.
Co-host, Noah Kozlov, a fantastic co-host. You know what? Maybe the greatest co-host of all time, if I can get a little Trumpian.
Good for it. He's a wonderful
Amazing.
person. He's an amazing, wonderful person. Co-host of NBA Sunday Tip on Sirius XM Bleacher Report Radio.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.